Tonight, a pre-election boost for university graduates struggling with HECS debt. Hello, I'm Alison Costelloe. This is ABC News. Also tonight, the Integrity Commission calls for greater powers to investigate MPs. The Spanish flood's death toll passes 200. And bouncing back from a heart attack at age 22. University graduates could save hundreds of dollars a year in student debt repayments under the federal government's flagged shake-up of the HECS system. The reforms are contingent on the Albanese government being re-elected and would also allow graduates to earn more before having to start their repayments.
A pre-election pitch to younger Australians, struggling amid a cost of living crunch.
Everybody earning up to $180,000 a year will pay less every year in their student debt repayments.
The government unveiling an election commitment to reduce the burden of student debt, months out from the election.
What this will do is help people who are just starting out, who've just finished uni, who've just finished TAFE, and have now got to pay the bills, pay the rent or are saving for a mortgage.
3 million Australians would benefit from the changes, which would be introduced to Parliament if the Albanese government is returned at the next election. They'd include a shift to a marginal repayment system, similar to the income tax thresholds, where you pay a set rate per dollar over a certain level rather than a percentage of total earnings. Graduates could also earn more before they have to start repaying the debt, with an increase to the minimum repayment threshold from $54,000 to $67,000. The average university graduate will be $680 better off a year under the changes. For graduates earning $70,000 a year, their repayments will fall by $1,300. Those on $80,000 will pay $850 less. And it's got the approval of the original architect of the scheme.
HECS has been wrong for about 35 years, collecting on the basis of total income. I don't think it's mattered a lot overall, but it has certainly disadvantaged people at those crunch points.
Students are mostly on board.
There's so much more you can do with that extra money, especially when you're young and you're trying to start up your life.
I think it would be like a huge difference. I think it would really open up a lot of opportunities for people.
It's a good idea, but I do think more needs to be done.
Like the spare money would be good, but probably just use it to keep repaying it anyway.
The government's suite of reforms to tackle student debt, including some yet to be announced, won't come cheap. But the government insists they'll go some way to addressing generational inequality. The opposition isn't on board, arguing the reforms risk signing young people up to a lifetime of debt. Nicole Hegarty, ABC News, Canberra.
Tasmania's Integrity Commission faces regular criticism for the perceived slow pace of its investigations. One factor adding to the delays is its inability to access relevant emails sent and received by members of Parliament. The Commission is calling for this to change.
The Speaker.
Parliamentary privilege is an important part of democracy. It allows MPs to speak freely in Parliament with special legal rights and immunities, but it can also be a roadblock.
It makes it almost impossible to investigate a Member of Parliament or a member of parliamentary staff unless they fully comply and consent rather than being compelled.
The Integrity Commission has been investigating 2 members of the Tasmanian Parliament for over 2 years. It says one of these investigations has effectively stalled because of parliamentary privilege. Investigators can't access parliamentary emails of MPs or their staff.
It's not a desirable situation. The public are entitled to know that members of Parliament and parliamentary staff are subject to the same requirements as other members of the public service.
The Commission was able to investigate Adam Brooks over misconduct allegations because he voluntarily allowed investigators to access his emails.
The Integrity Commission can't just look at every single email. It needs to be able to pick out the ones that are relevant for its investigations. And for 2 years, it's been trying to develop a protocol to allow that to happen. That could involve an independent arbiter deciding which emails it can access.
But that process also appears to have stalled.
We need to move on that and get back to working with the Integrity Commission to develop a protocol that will bring us into line with a number of other states.
We are having that dialogue around what the Integrity Commission's scope is, how it goes about fulfilling its role, which is an important and independent role, and making sure that it's funded appropriately to do that.
A step that could add more oversight while maintaining the sanctity of parliamentary privilege. Adam Holmes, ABC News.
Hundreds of people remain unaccounted for following the catastrophic floods in eastern Spain. Emergency crews are searching through washed-up cars and abandoned buildings, with the death toll now exceeding 200. Thousands of volunteers have turned out to help with the mammoth clean-up.
3 days on from the destructive deluge, reinforcements are arriving. Volunteers armed with shovels and brooms stream into the disaster zone to lend a hand.
It's amazing. Thousands of people coming from Valencia, like a big corridor of people, heartwarming.
Locals forced to get creative to get by. Dirty bottles plucked from the river can't afford to go to waste here, where everything is running out.
No matter how much help comes, this is not going to be fixed in a month or two.
The task is overwhelming. Entire towns have been ripped apart by the floodwaters, while help is yet to reach others that are completely cut off.
We haven't been through the worst part yet. Nothing can come through, no food, nothing.
The devastation is everywhere. These cars were swept into a tunnel. Firefighters now combing through one by one, searching for the missing. Shock is giving way to mounting anger at how a disaster of this scale could unfold with so little warning.
There was no warning at all. I think that this caught everyone by surprise.
Our local government didn't do anything about it, knowing they well knew that, this was coming.
This was Australian Caroline Doyle's view. She'd been teaching an English class and rushed her students to safety.
We heard the boom of the doors being ripped off the house in front of us and the water just flooding in.
She says the cleanup is impossible to comprehend.
It just seemed unbelievable.
And inconceivable from above too. This was the region 3 days ago. Now it's been completely transformed. Experts say human-induced climate change makes these disasters more likely and more severe. Soldiers have been sent in to join the swarms of volunteers as they begin a recovery mission, which could take years. Bridget Rollison, ABC News.
A young girl is among at least 14 people killed after a roof collapsed at a train station in Serbia. The concrete canopy came crashing down onto a set of benches outside the station in Novi Sad, the country's second largest city. 3 people remain in hospital, all of them in serious condition. A vigil was held for victims, locals lighting candles and laying flowers at a makeshift memorial. The government's declared Saturday an official day of mourning and promised an investigation into the collapse. The 2 candidates in the race for the White House have spent the day campaigning in the Midwestern Rust Belt, often only a few kilometres apart. But violent language is once again polarising the nation, with Donald Trump's suggestion a former Republican should have guns in her face, prompting Kamala Harris to say this should disqualify the former president from standing. Our correspondent Elias Kluwer reports from the swing state of Michigan.
The parties are in Michigan, another crucial battleground. On the final weekend of campaigning,
4 days left.
Both candidates have returned to the one-time auto manufacturing heartland, courting blue-collar voters.
At Chrysler, GM and Ford plants, they're telling me that 65%, a solid 65%, are supporting Donald Trump.
She's for the working people. She's for the everyday Joe that busts his ass in this country.
We will invest in the industries that built America, like steel, iron, the electric power industry.
The former president also used his visit to drive up support among Muslim voters in the nation's largest Arab American community.
You're going to have peace in the Middle East, but not with the clowns that you have running the U.S. right now.
Donald Trump's Rust Belt swing is forming part of his final pitch to working-class voters, but instead this particular trip to here in Detroit has been overshadowed by comments he made about former Republican Congresswoman Liz Cheney.
She's a radical war hawk. Let's put her with a rifle standing there with 9 barrels shooting at her, okay? Let's see how she feels about it. You know, when the guns are trained on her face.
The outspoken Republican, who says she's now voting for the Democrats, took to X and described the comments as cruel and vindictive. This is how dictators destroy free nations, she said.
This must be disqualifying. Anyone who wants to be president of the United States who uses that kind of violent rhetoric is clearly disqualified and unqualified to be president.
Later, President Trump clarified his comments on Truth Social, saying the former Congresswoman wouldn't have the guts to fight for herself. Joining Kamala Harris's fight, more star power, actor Mark Ruffalo.
She's our only choice, folks.
And pop star Cardi B.
I'm with Kamala. In America, I believe in you to turn out on Tuesday. Turn out and turn up on Tuesday. Turn the page and let's win this thing.
Some glitz and glamour in an increasingly ugly race. Elias Clure, ABC News, Michigan.
And with just 4 days to go, our Global Affairs editor John Lyons is in Washington with his take on how the candidates are performing.
In the final days before the US presidential election, both candidates are continuing to make their last-minute pitch to voters in the 7 swing states across the country, but are narrowing their focus on states including Michigan and Wisconsin. But all eyes will be on Pennsylvania, with its large number of electoral college votes. It could be the deciding state in this election. Donald Trump is continuing to play to what the Republicans see as their 2 strongest issues, immigration and the economy. Kamala Harris is highlighting reproductive rights, particularly in terms of abortion, but is also trying to bolster her economic credentials with voters. This election result is simply impossible to predict, and key pollsters say the result may not be known for some days after the election.
Families devastated by the incurable asbestos cancer mesothelioma are urging Australia to deal with the millions of tonnes of asbestos remaining in buildings across the country, including about 1/3 of homes. The potentially deadly building material would have to be disclosed to prospective buyers and renters of homes built before 1990 under a new national plan. Claire Moody has this special report.
Mark Drage lost his wife 18 months ago.
Devastation, obviously. We both working hard, saving for our retirement, and that curveball gets thrown at you.
Kathleen was diagnosed with mesothelioma over 20 years after the couple helped renovate a beach house north of Perth.
She climbed up onto a very old asbestos roof and ended up with fibres all over her clothing. Some of these products should have had a product recall years ago. That may have saved my wife's life.
About 6 million tonnes of the material remains in everything from roofs to wall panels, with the cost of removal one of the big barriers.
It's starting to show in the numbers and the amount of people that are coming down with an asbestos-related disease through home renovations.
But it's not just an older person's disease. 18-year-old Jarni Greatorix in Gippsland is one of the youngest Australians to be diagnosed with mesothelioma.
I ended up in hospital with my lungs being filled with fluid. I couldn't breathe.
Jarni's receiving immunotherapy treatment. Her family is still trying to pinpoint where she was exposed to asbestos fibres.
It's one thing to be told yourself that you have cancer. I had that diagnosis. It's completely another thing to hear that your child has cancer. But to hear that it's something that could have been prevented.
Exhibiting at this trade show in Newcastle, Barry Robson's been trying to raise awareness for 30 years.
Any house built before 1990?
He says stronger laws are needed, including registers disclosing if asbestos is present in homes on the market.
In other words, that the buyer of that house knows that this house contains asbestos.
And that's a proposal that's actually outlined in this strategic plan, which points out that over 4,000 Australians are still dying from asbestos-related diseases each year. The plan calls for incentives to encourage homeowners to have asbestos surveys done and for these to be disclosed at point of sale and lease. But the real estate industry is calling for bonded asbestos that's in good condition to be exempt from any mandatory rules unless there's a clear risk.
I think it's important to disclose potential asbestos to our renters and our purchasers, but we just need to work out how it's best to do that without imposing extra costs on consumers.
These professional asbestos removalists aren't taking any chances.
People are a bit sort of maybe naive or flippant about it. I think it'll be okay, it won't happen to me.
They're set to be busy in coming decades.
Well, the old saying is, do it yourself, do yourself in. It's as simple as that.
It'll be up to each state when they carry out the measures within the Asbestos National Plan. Affected families believe they're long overdue. Claire Moody, ABC News.
Art thieves armed with heavy explosives have made off with 2 artworks by Andy Warhol in the Netherlands. The gallery owner has described the heist as amateurish. He says the thieves blew open the doors, then ripped 2 artworks from their frames, damaging them beyond repair. Another 2 works were abandoned in the street, reportedly because they didn't fit in the getaway car. The screen prints were part of a 1985 series by Warhol depicting the then Queens of the UK, the Netherlands, Denmark and Swaziland. Last night we brought you the story of Tasmanian volunteers trying to save endangered birds. Around the country there are plenty of plants also on the threatened list, and in Western Victoria community members are rallying to preserve some of Australia's rarest wildflowers.
The tiny Derrinallum billybutton is so rare, only one population has been found surviving in the wild. But thanks to careful work underway in Western Victoria, it's being rescued from the brink of extinction.
Across the volcanic plains, so we've probably got less than 1% of native grasslands that still remain.
The billybutton is one of 17 plants being saved. Sheep farmer and landcare volunteer David Franklin spent decades figuring out how to make these grassland plants grow.
Just becomes a bit of a challenge actually to try and overcome the secrets that they all seem to hold.
Some of these endangered plants will be used to produce more seed. Others will be reintroduced to reserves and private farmland.
They've been reduced down to such a small area in Victoria since white settlement that you just look at them and say, oh, how can we try and keep what we've got left?
Victoria's best remaining grasslands exist on nondescript roadsides like this, and it's believed that CFA planned burns have unintentionally played a big part in their survival, by mimicking how Aboriginal land managers had maintained the grasslands for thousands of years.
It's been the optimal sort of management to maintain really highly diverse native grassland on the roadsides.
But locals say these burns are becoming less frequent.
We haven't managed to get burning done as frequently in the last 10 years. There's just fewer families, fewer people, and a lot of jobs fall to a few.
Finding the next generation of volunteers is a problem the Landcare group faces too.
I suppose one of the things we struggle with is finding new members who are younger.
Looking for help to continue saving some of Victoria's most precious flowers. Rhiannon Stevens, ABC News, Chatsworth.
North Melbourne has sewn up the AFLW's minor premiership after a near-perfect season. The Roos' victory over the Gold Coast today was their 10th this year, and with a draw in round 2, they remain undefeated heading into the finals series. Meanwhile, the Demons are one step closer to a finals berth after a big win over Collingwood.
It was almost just a formality at Arden Street.
Who runs into goal and kicks a major.
The Kangaroos powering past their lowly ranked opponent Gold Coast
for goal number 4, Alison
and hitting their stride at the top of the ladder as the finals approach. Captain Kate Hoare's 3-goal haul has helped Melbourne climb into the top 8 for now.
And she snaps a ripper for back-to-back goals for the captain.
The Demons' biggest win this season, keeping them alive in the finals race as they await the result of the Bombers versus the Blues.
Fingers crossed, it's kind of hard when it's out of your hands, but I guess that's just the cards we've been dealt with this season.
While Wooden Spooner Collingwood farewelled veteran player Stacey Livingston, the Magpie defender playing her final game after being drafted in the inaugural AFLW season. The Swans wrapped up their season with a 46-point win over the Eagles.
Hamilton snaps around the corner and finishes off.
Brooke Loughlin and Evie Gooch also calling time on their careers. Last night,
and the Crows end Geelong's season.
Another close loss spelled curtains for the Cats. The Crows now locked in to the top 4.
It was a tough game. It was a bit nerve-wracking for the coach, but ultimately really pleased.
Adelaide's 5th straight finals campaign begins next week. Erin Marsicovetere, ABC News.
Another second half fade out has seen the Jack Jumpers slump to a 4th loss from their past 5 games in the National Basketball League. Tasmania wore retro yellow jerseys to acknowledge the championship-winning Launceston Casino City team as they took the floor at the Silverdome. But the South East Melbourne Phoenix and import Matt Hurt had come to spoil the party. The Jack Jumpers led by as many as 12 at one point in the game, but ice-cold shooting from Milton Doyle and Jordan Crawford kept the Phoenix in the contest. Hurt and Nathan Sobey hit big late three-pointers to edge the Phoenix in front. Tasmania unable to steal the win off the last play of the game, going down 79-77 and slumping to 3 wins and 6 losses for the season.
At some point, it's going to click. We just keep pounding the rock, and at some point we're going to continue to break through, but when that happens, don't know.
Nathan McSweeney has put his hand up for Australia's vacant Test opener spot, adding an unbeaten 47 to his first innings 39 in Australia A's match against India A. Marcus Harris also found some runs, scoring 36 before being caught behind. Sam Constas was bold, leaving a good delivery, while Cameron Bancroft's lean trot continues, managing just 16. McSweeney took his chance in the middle, hitting 5 boundaries as the hosts went to stumps, needing 86 runs to win. Meanwhile, Australia's one-day side turned up for its series against Pakistan, which starts at the MCG on Monday. The tourists haven't played ODI cricket since last year's World Cup. Jockey Jamie Carr has capped off a rollercoaster day, claiming the Victoria Derby and becoming just the second female to do it. The 28-year-old is, however, feeling every bit of today's hectic schedule. An emotional Group 2 win, followed by a scary incident that left her with a suspected broken nose.
A day that belonged entirely to Jamie Carr. The Flemington feature, hers to keep.
With 100 to go, is pulling out. It's the stronger. It's going well. And Gold Rush Guru won the Derby.
A Derby delight on board Gold Rush Guru, Carr claiming the 3-year-old classic.
Well, Jamie Carr's remarkable day just takes another amazing twist.
Both horse and jockey from South Australia, the hometown connection paying off.
I couldn't stop him. He wanted to do another lap.
To come across the line today, take the win, it's fantastic.
An emphatic win capping a rollercoaster start to the day.
A win that means so much, another will by a length and a quarter.
Claiming victory in race 4 on board another wheel, Carr's emotion laid bare. Saluting the heavens as she paid tribute to the horse's late owner, Colin McKenna, who passed away last Sunday.
Today, I just wanted to make Cole proud, and thank God we got the win in the end.
Very proud. Yeah, he's just such a great mentor, mate.
Carr was set to ride again in race 5 before being knocked in the face by her horse.
Out there about this incident with Jamie Carr that we're seeing right now. Wow.
Forced to dismount with a blood nose as doctors tried to stem the bleeding. Hurry Curry was scratched from the race. Carr later passing a concussion test, paving the way for her Derby glory. Trackside, most followed the day's traditional black and white dress code. Others missed the memo.
I did go navy because I didn't know until approximately 3 hours ago.
The sun is out in Flemington is set to welcome 80,000 people through the gates today alone.
Fascinators and fashion front and centre as Australia's Golden Girl made a splash. But even six-time Olympic gold medalist Emma McKeon couldn't take the golden day away from Jamie Carr. The stewards took the shine off, handing Carr a 10-metre suspension starting after Cup Day. Alexia Pesce, ABC News.
Saya Deans was a rising star in Tasmanian basketball, playing at the highest levels in Australia and chasing his dreams in US college basketball. But last year, the 22-year-old suffered a heart attack. As Jake Grant reports, he's now overcome the near-death experience to share his love of the game with Tasmania's next generation.
Ready, set, go!
Basketball is life for Saya Deans.
I love basketball, and I think at that time of my life, like basketball sort of was, you know, a major part of my identity.
The Launceston-born player has represented his state and country and was the first signing to the Tasmanian Jack Jumpers NBL team as a development player. Before playing a game, he was off to Florida to play college basketball in 2022.
It's sort of been like a long time dream of mine to play college basketball, so I guess I was really excited to leave and go over there.
He was very tunnel visioned, I guess, with his passion with it, and that was his plan A, and he only had a plan A.
That dream was cut short going into his second year.
I was having a really good summer. You know, probably my peak form of basketball that I'd ever been in by a long shot. But unfortunately, while I was playing pickup, I suffered a cardiac arrest, you know, which I was very lucky to survive.
Saya had no pulse for 4 minutes and was in a coma for 24 hours.
I talked to the nurse, and she said that we had to get there straight away, and he had a lot of swelling on his brain, and yeah, it was scary.
After months of treatment, he returned to Tasmania.
I think with everything that I've learned through this process is, you know, that basketball isn't my identity, and there's so many other things that I enjoy about my life.
While his basketball dream is in recovery, Saya is using the opportunity to help others pursue theirs, running basketball clinics for young Tasmanians.
For me, just being able to give back and you know, provide coaching and some guidance for some younger players is good.
For Saya, the door isn't completely shut on professional basketball. He's signed to a team in Denmark for the upcoming season.
I still have ambitions of, you know, getting back into the NBL and playing in the NBL.
Bouncing back from adversity, Jake Grant, ABC News.
To the weather now, and tonight's photo by Rebecca Walsh was taken from the top of Fossil Bluff in Wynyard, looking out to Table Cape. It was a cold start, but in the end a fine and mostly sunny day today. Warmest at Bushy Park with 23, although Hobart also reached 23 and Launceston got to 19. Yesterday and overnight, the highest rainfall was 7 millimetres at Scotts Peak, which is down south of Medina. The national satellite sequence shows a frontal cloud band extending over the country's south and down to the west of Tasmania. And tomorrow's synoptic chart shows the strong cold front crossing Tasmania during the morning, with a cooler and lighter west to northwesterly airstream to follow. Across the country tomorrow, it seems to be fairly fine. Perth, Melbourne and Adelaide all to reach 23. Cooler in Tasmania with showers early, which will head off to the west and far south in the morning. Strong and gusty winds on the way. This picture shows you where the rain is forecast to fall throughout the day. And a lot of it's in the west, 16 for Queenstown and Strawn, 18 for Burnie. Moving east, the weather's a little warmer and definitely drier, and seeing temps hovering around the 20s around the south tomorrow. Sunrise will be at 10 to 6. Coastal waters west to northwesterlies 20 to 30 knots, reaching 40 knots in the south. There's a severe weather warning for damaging winds which will develop in the west tonight but extend to central and eastern areas by the morning. There are also multiple gale and strong wind warnings in place. Monday's weather mostly fine, just some showers about the west. Warmer on Tuesday after some patchy inland frost, and the week ahead looks a little wet, but some mild temps warming up nicely midweek. That's the news for now. Enjoy the rest of your evening. I'll see you tomorrow. Good night.